what I do know for sure is that, Charlie was someone who once said, guns save lives, after a school shooting. Charlie was someone who was willing to debate and downplay the death of George Floyd in the hands of Minneapolis police.
I think he called him a scumbag.
Right, have no regard, downplay slavery and what Black people have gone through in this country by saying Juneteenth should never exist. And I think, there are a lot of people who are out there talking about him just wanting to have a civil debate.
Complete rewriting of history.
Yeah, there is nothing more effed up, than to completely pretend that, his words and actions have not been recorded and in existence.
Before we begin, hey there, folks. Have you ever heard someone say something so controversial that it just makes your blood boil? Something that makes you think, how can anyone say something like that and still hold a position of power? Well, that's exactly what Representative Ilhan Omar did recently when she made some very harsh remarks about Charlie Kirk shortly after his tragic death. Now, I'm sure some of you might already be shaking your heads thinking, what in the world did she say now? Well, she called Charlie Kirk a reprehensible human being, a stochastic terrorist, and went as far as to claim that he enacted his political agenda by preying on weak-minded people. Now, this isn't a small thing. These words were not only harsh, but deeply divisive. And in the wake of his assassination, they lit up a firestorm in Congress. Before we dive deeper into this, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Give this video a thumbs up if you're ready for some real talk.
Mr. Speaker, pursuant to Clause 2A1 of Rule 9, I rise to give notice of my intent to raise a question of the privileges of the House. The form of the resolution is as follows. House Resolution 713. Censuring Representative Ilhan Omar of Minnesota and removing her from the Committee on Education and Workforce and the Committee on the Budget. Whereas Charlie Kirk was a lifelong advocate for freedom of speech, civil political discourse, and the political engagement of youth. Whereas Charlie Kirk was a man of deep faith, a husband, and a father to 2 young children. Whereas on September 10, 2025, Charlie Kirk was assassinated on the campus of Utah Valley University while exercising his First Amendment right to freedom of speech. Whereas on September 11, 2025, one day after the assassination of Charlie Kirk, Representative Ilhan Omar gave an interview on Zateo's town hall with Mehdi Hassan in which she smeared Charlie Kirk and implied he was to blame for his own murder. Whereas on September 12, 2025, 2 days after the assassination of Charlie Kirk, Representative Ilhan Omar reposted a video on X, formerly known as Twitter, which disparaged the character of Charlie Kirk and those mourning his death. Whereas the video Representative Ilhan Omar reposted on X states Charlie Kirk is dead, and before the body got cold, the far-right propped his corpse up as a cudgel for their holy war. Whereas the video Representative Ilhan Omar reposted on X further states, don't be fooled. These people don't give a single shit about Charlie Kirk. They are just using his death to further their Christo-fascist agenda. Whereas the video Representative Ilhan Omar reposted on X further states Charlie Kirk was a reprehensible human being. He enacted his political agenda by preying on weak-minded people. He took complex socioeconomic issues and simplified them by pointing fingers at outgroups, demonizing those groups, and sicking his massive following on them. Whereas the video Representative Ilhan Omar reposted on X further states Charlie Kirk was a stochastic terrorist, an adamant transphobe. He denied the genocide happening in Palestine. He believed the subjugation of women, and in his last dying words, he was spewing racist dog whistles. Whereas the video Representative Ilhan Omar reposted on X further states Charlie Kirk was Dr. Frankenstein, and his monster shot him through the neck. Whereas the video Representative Ilhan Omar reposted on X further blames Charlie Kirk for his own murder. Whereas Clause 1 of Rule 13 of the Rules of the House of Representatives provides, a member, delegate, resident commissioner, officer, or employee of the House shall behave at all times in a manner that shall reflect credibility on the House. Whereas Representative Ilhan Omar's actions in the wake of the assassination of Charlie Kirk are
political
reprehensible,
gain. As Nancy Mace
and affect the dignity and integrity of the proceedings of the House and do not reflect the credibility on the House. Now, therefore, be it resolved that Representative Ilhan Omar of Minnesota be censured.
Whereas Representative Omar said she has spoken to many Somalians who asked her to intercede for the Somali government by pressuring the United States government into certain actions. Whereas Representative Omar assured the Somalians she spoke to, the U.S. government will only do what Somalians in the U.S. tell them to do. They will do what we want and nothing else. They must follow our orders, and that is how we will safeguard the interest of Somalia. Whereas Representative Omar continued, for as long as I am in U.S. Congress, Somalia will never be in danger. Its waters will not be stolen by Ethiopia or others. Sleep in comfort knowing I am here to protect the interest of Somalia from inside the U.S. system. Whereas George Washington warned in his farewell address of 1796 to guard against the impostures of pretended patriotism, and further declared citizens by birth or choice of a common country, that country has a right to concentrate your affections. The name of American, which belongs to you in your national capacity, must always exalt the just pride of patriotism more than any appellation derived from local discriminations. Whereas these statements by Representative Omar clearly violate the oath she took as an elected member of Congress to defend and protect the United States Constitution. Whereas Representative Omar has exhibited the treasonous tendencies George Washington warned about, and her actions must be condemned by all members of Congress who adhere to the oath they took upon assuming office. And whereas by openly admitting her efforts to advance Somalia's interest using her position as a United States representative, Representative Omar has revealed herself to be a foreign agent acting on behalf of a foreign government. Now, therefore, be it resolved that Representative Ilhan Omar of Minnesota be censured. Representative Ilhan Omar forthwith present herself in the well of the House of Representatives for the pronouncement of censure. Representative Ilhan Omar be censured with the public reading of this resolution by the Speaker, and Representative Ilhan Omar be and is hereby removed from the Committee of the Budget and the Committee on Education and the Workforce.
And drop a comment below. I want to know what you think about this situation because, trust me, we've got a lot to unpack here. All right, now that we've set the stage, I know you're all curious to hear the full reaction. So, let's get into it. After watching that clip, I'm sure many of you are feeling the tension in the room. Let me just say this right up front. I am all for freedom of speech, no matter where it comes from. But there's a fine line between expressing an opinion and disrespecting a man's legacy, especially in the wake of his death. Charlie Kirk was far from perfect. In fact, he was a highly controversial figure known for his inflammatory rhetoric. But does that mean his death should be used as a political tool to push an agenda? Is it right for Ilhan Omar to say that Kirk was responsible for his own murder? Is that where we're drawing the line now? Let's take a closer look at what's really going on here, because I don't think it's as simple as Omar just making a few offhand remarks. This is part of a much larger political battle where freedom of speech is used as both a shield and a weapon. First off, let's acknowledge something: Charlie Kirk wasn't the perfect angel that some of his supporters are making him out to be. He made a career out of being divisive, stirring up emotions, and appealing to the most extreme ends of the political spectrum. Whether you agree with his politics or not, there's no denying that his approach wasn't exactly built on unifying rhetoric. But when Omar made those comments, calling him a stochastic terrorist and downplaying his tragic death, was that the right response? Look, I get it. Omar has every right to say what he thinks, but in this situation, is it really about free speech? Or is it about using a tragedy to score political points? because that's what this felt like to me. If we're being real here, she used Charlie Kirk's death as an opportunity to make a point. A point that, in my opinion, went too far. Now, I want to be clear, Charlie Kirk wasn't murdered just because of his political views. He was a victim of violence, plain and simple. And violence is never acceptable, no matter where it comes from. But when Omar says that he enacted his political agenda by preying on weak-minded people, I think it's a dangerous road to go down. If we're going to start blaming people for their own murders based on their political ideologies, where do we draw the line? This isn't just about what Omar said. It's about the culture that's being cultivated where people on both sides of the aisle are willing to use tragedy to push their own political narratives. And that's exactly what happened here. We saw people on the right clamoring for Omar's removal and censure. But here's the thing, I don't believe Omar should be censured for what she said. I believe she should be held accountable, just like any other politician. But silencing her completely would only further divide us. But let's look at the bigger picture for a second. Why is it that when someone on the left says something controversial, it's immediately met with calls for their removal or censorship? But when the right does the same thing, it's just free speech? The hypocrisy is maddening. Take Trump, for example. Every time he said something offensive or outright dangerous, his supporters defended him by saying he had the right to speak his mind. But the minute someone like Omar says something they don't like, suddenly it's call for action, call for censure. Why is it that the left is always expected to be held to a higher standard? Why do we have to be the ones who apologize for every little thing, while the right gets a free pass? This isn't about political correctness. It's about fairness. And right now, there's an undeniable double standard in play. If we're going to demand accountability, it needs to be for everyone, not just the people we disagree with. The real issue here is accountability, not censorship. I'm all for free speech. But we have to have standards in place that don't allow anyone, no matter their political affiliation, to say whatever they want without consequence. I'm not saying that we should shut down Omar's voice, but I do think she needs to answer for the harm caused by her words. Charlie Kirk was controversial, but he also had a voice in the political arena. If we silence people like him, or people like Omar, we're not winning. We're just creating more division. The issue isn't just one person's remarks. It's the fact that we're no longer able to have real conversations about these issues without resorting to personal attacks and political theater. Now, I want to point out that Nancy Mace and Marjorie Greene's responses to this whole situation were far from surprising. They came out swinging, demanding Omar be censured, and the crowd's reaction was explosive. But what does that say about us as a nation? Why is it that we only want to hold people accountable when it fits our own narrative? If we really want to heal, if we really want to bridge the divide in this country, we need to start holding everyone to the same standard. We need to stop picking and choosing who deserves to be censured based on their political party. This has nothing to do with Omar being a Democrat or a progressive. It's about whether or not we're willing to hold our politicians accountable for their actions, no matter where they fall on the political spectrum. Look, I'm not saying that Omar didn't make a mistake. She did. But the backlash she's facing doesn't feel like a genuine call for accountability. It feels like a political weapon, and that's where we lose the plot. What I'm asking for is simple. I want to see a country where people can speak, but where their words matter. Words have power, and they can tear people down, or they can build people up. Right now, we're seeing so much tearing down, and not enough building up. What happened here with Ilhan Omar and Charlie Kirk is just another symptom of a larger issue we need to address as a nation. So, let's wrap this up, folks. I believe in free speech. I believe in political discourse. But I also believe in holding people accountable for their words, whether they're on the left or the right. We need to stop using tragedy for political gain and start having conversations that matter. The left doesn't get a free pass, and neither does the right. It's time to demand more from our leaders. Thanks for sticking with me through this. I know it was a heavy topic, but it's one we need to keep talking about. If you agree or disagree, I want to hear from you. Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to hit that like button if you appreciate this kind of conversation. And as always, make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss any of our future discussions. Until next time, folks, stay thoughtful, stay engaged, and always keep questioning the narratives that are handed to you.